With that, we'll go ahead and kick off the session. And when I was asked to chair the session, I was also asked to make just a few remarks. And so I'm not listed as a speaker, but I did prepare a few slides, maybe just to sort of set up the session. Why are we here talking about mycoplasma eradication or elimination in Minnesota? And this really stems back to the Minnesota Pork Board. Minnesota Pork has a pillar that it will lead the nation in herd health improvement. And so I got a call from Jill Ressler, the executive director of Minnesota Pork, about a year ago, asking if I would participate in a group that would help establish a Minnesota swine health task force. And a number of you in the room were also received that call and agreed to participate. And so we've had a number of meetings, and the purpose of that was to basically put this pillar into action on behalf of the producers of the state of Minnesota. And so one of the strategic imperatives that came out of this was focused on U.S. ship. And so the goal was to leading the nation in herd health improvement was to increase producer participation in U.S. ship. And you can see the goals there that were set forward. And then the second one was establish an animal health task force with the goal of making progress toward eliminating endemic diseases. And so an animal health task force was established, a work plan was put in place, and an advisement was submitted to the 2025 National Pork Industry Forum that was related to the National Swine Health Strategy, which hopefully most of you participated in over the course of the summer. That's being led by National Pork Board and Dr. Dusty Odekoven's team. The Animal Health Task Force then also set to work on determining, well, what do we want to target in Minnesota? How do we want to demonstrate leadership in animal health and animal well-being? And essentially the group that got together decided, well, we should maybe look at Mycoplasma hyopneumoniae. And so a bunch of work was put in place. Dr. Tom Wetzel led a group that really started to focus on, well, what does that look like? Okay, how would we go about accomplishing that? And so this session today really comes out of that work. How do we start building momentum for creating a mycoplasma elimination or eradication in the state of Minnesota? And so I'm not going to get into all the details on that, other than to say that many of the folks that were part of that task force work for producers in Minnesota that have already decided to tackle Mycoplasma hyopneumoniae. And I happen to work for one of those groups. And so at Pipestone, we weren't probably the earliest adopter, but we decided about 10 years ago that we wanted to look at this. And it was really an add-on to what we had been doing for PRRS. And what you see on the screen here is just a weekly report that we have at Pipestone looking at the farms that we have under management that are in a disease elimination program or project currently. And so you can see at the top is PRRS, right? That's the one we seem to be working on the most, but we also have a section for Mycoplasma hyopneumoniae in which we have one farm today that's in a project. Well, what does that look like over time for us? Because when we started, we had a lot of positive farms. We started tracking this within our Pipestone managed farm cohort back in 2017, and you can see at the time we were about 35% Mycoplasma hyopneumoniae negative at the sow farm level, at the breeding herd level. And so over time, we have done various projects on farms under our management, and most of those I would just say have been opportunistic. We didn't maybe set out to eliminate mycoplasma, but we had a herd closure going on for PRRS, and so why not tackle myco at the same time? And so opportunistic closures, along with anytime a new farm is stocked today, we make sure we stock that Mycoplasma hyopneumoniae naive, and using the sound science that's been generated here at Minnesota and other places on how to do good eliminations, we've been able to increase our Mycoplasma hyopneumoniae negative status to over 90%. And so I share this slide really just as an example of what's possible and why we really believe strongly, at least at Pipestone, and why I believe strongly in this project in the state of Minnesota. And so with that, I'm going to transition us now to our first speaker, the speakers you came to hear. And our first speaker is Dr. Cesar Corzo. He is currently an associate professor at the University of Minnesota, where he holds the Leman Chair in Swine Health and Productivity and the Morrison Swine Health Monitoring Project Director. He holds a DVM from the Universidad de la Salle in Colombia and a Master's of Science from University of Guelph and a PhD from the University of Minnesota. Dr. Corzo has previously worked with PIC and Elanco. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Corzo.